Right now, there's a tree standing in a forest somewhere, doing nothing. No movement, no sound, no visible reaction to anything around it. If you asked most people what that tree is experiencing, they'd say the same thing. Nothing. It's a plant. It doesn't think. It doesn't feel. It definitely doesn't know you're standing there looking at it. But what if that's wrong? What if, somewhere beneath the bark, something is happening that looks a lot like a decision? What if the tree next to it is already dying, and this one knows? In 2014, a researcher named Monica Gagliano ran an experiment on a plant most people know as the touch-me-not, Mimosa pudica. It's famous for one reflex: touch it, shake it, drop it, and its leaves instantly fold shut, a defense against being eaten. Gagliano built a rig that dropped potted mimosa plants a short distance, over and over, triggering that same leaf fold every time. At first, the plants reacted every single time. But after repeated drops with no actual harm, something changed. The plants stopped closing. They'd learned the disturbance wasn't dangerous, and they simply stopped wasting the energy to react. That's a real phenomenon with a name: habituation. It's one of the simplest forms of learning there is, the same basic mechanism that lets you stop flinching at a noise once you realize it's harmless. And the plants didn't just learn it in the moment. Gagliano's team moved them into new environments and tested them again 28 days later. They still remembered. A plant with no brain, no neurons, no nervous system, held on to a memory for almost a month. Now, here's where it gets complicated, because plenty of scientists think that result is being oversold. Critics have pointed out that the forgetting of the leaf fold reflex could just as easily be explained by motor fatigue, the plant's folding mechanism physically tiring out, not learning anything at all. The debate over whether this counts as memory or just mechanical wear is still unresolved. The format of the test might be showing us something real, or it might be showing us nothing more than a muscle getting tired. Nobody's fully sure yet. But memory is only half the story. Because plants don't just seem to remember, they seem to talk to each other. In South Africa in the early 1990s, a zoologist named Wouter van Hoven was called in to investigate the mysterious deaths of thousands of antelope on game ranches. What he found was strange. The antelope had been feeding on acacia trees, and something in those leaves had turned lethal. When acacia leaves are chewed, the tree floods them with tannin, a bitter compound that in high enough doses is toxic. That part made sense as basic self-defense. What didn't make sense, at first, was that trees 50 yards away, trees that hadn't been touched at all, were producing the same toxic tannin within minutes. The damaged tree, it turned out, was releasing a gas called ethylene into the air. Neighboring acacias detected it and responded as if they were under attack themselves, boosting their own toxin levels before a single animal had touched their leaves. And the giraffes in the area seemed to have caught on. Van Hoven observed that giraffes would browse just one tree in 10, deliberately skipping the ones downwind of an already eaten tree, as if they knew the warning had already gone out. That's not consciousness. Nobody's claiming the tree is afraid. But it is a signal sent, received, and acted on between organisms with no nervous system between them. If an animal did this, we'd call it an alarm call. Which brings us to the biggest and most controversial idea in plant science: the network underneath the forest floor. In the 1990s, a Canadian ecologist named Suzanne Samar began mapping how tree roots connect to shared threads of fungus in the soil, structures now nicknamed the Wood Wide Web. Her research suggested older, larger trees, sometimes called hub or mother trees, could funnel carbon and nutrients through this fungal network to younger seedlings nearby, effectively feeding their neighbors' offspring. It's one of the most viral ideas in modern biology. It inspired best-selling books, a character in a Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, and entire documentaries. And in 2023, a group of mycorrhizal researchers published a sharp rebuttal, arguing that some of the field's most repeated claims, that these networks are widespread, that they reliably benefit seedlings, that older trees deliberately favor younger ones, had outrun the actual evidence. Samar has defended her work since. The scientific argument is still live, playing out in journals in real time. Which is, honestly, exactly how it should look when a field is this young. Nobody's faking the data. They're arguing about how much weight it can hold. And underneath even that argument sits a deeper, stranger question. If a plant doesn't have a brain, What does it even mean to say it decides anything? Plant roots have been shown to grow directly toward the sound of flowing water, even when there's no moisture in the soil at all, homing in on nothing but vibration through the ground. Root tips have even been recorded producing their own rhythmic clicking sounds as they grow. Is that sensing? Is that listening? Or is it just chemistry finding the path of least resistance, dressed up in language borrowed from animal minds, because we don't have better words for it? Scientists studying this are careful here, because the moment you say a plant decided something, you're smuggling in an assumption nobody can actually prove. But then there's the kauri stump. In 2019, two researchers hiking through a forest west of Auckland, New Zealand, came across something that shouldn't have existed: the stump of a kauri tree, leafless, with no green tissue anywhere on it, that was somehow still alive. They rigged it and the healthy trees around it with heat sensors to track the movement of water. What they found was almost eerie. During the day, the living trees pulled water upward the normal way, powered by sunlight and their own leaves. But at night, water flowed the opposite direction, into the stump, through roots that had fused directly with its neighbor's roots underground. The stump had no way to make its own food. It offered nothing obvious back. And yet the living trees around it kept pumping resources into something that, by every normal measure, should have died years ago. The lead researcher put it simply: why would healthy trees keep feeding their dead neighbor for free? Nobody has a clean answer. It isn't about survival for the trees doing the feeding. There's no obvious benefit. The stump just keeps being kept alive, propped up undergrounds by something that looks, uncomfortably, like loyalty. So where does that leave us? The plants around you may be learning from what happens to them, warning each other about danger, and in at least one recorded case, refusing to let a limbless, leafless relative simply die. None of that proves a tree is aware the way you're aware right now, reading this sentence, knowing that you're reading it. That gap hasn't closed. Maybe it never will. But next time you walk past a tree and think of it as scenery, something still and silent in the background of your day, remember the kauri stump. Somewhere below your feet, something that should be dead is still being fed by the roots of the family standing around it. Not because it has to be, just because, apparently, it is.